Hi everyone, I'm out at Amadorio Reservoir this afternoon. Last time I was here was for a meet-up, and that was on a very clear sky, blue sky day, and we were here kind of late morning. Today I'm here in the afternoon, in the lead up to sunset, and we got quite a bit of cloud. So I've come out onto the dam. I'm going to have a play around with something here maybe. Might even try some long exposures. And then we'll see what happens as the afternoon wears on. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do, and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Okay, there's a fair bit of cloud, and there's also a bit of a breeze. I'm not sure that the clouds are moving in the optimum direction for where I am at the moment, but I think what I am going to do is set up and do a long exposure shot off of the dam here. Okay, I've set up with a fairly wide angle shot. Now it is actually still pretty bright. I mean, we are 2 and a bit hours before sunset, and although there's quite a lot of cloud around, as a lot of it is quite thin cloud, so it's still quite bright. So I've actually got on a 10 stop and a 3 stop ND filter, which should let me get a 2-minute exposure. So I'm going to run that, see what it looks like, and then see if we need to do anything else with it. Okay, so the 2-minute exposure looks pretty good. The exposure is pretty much spot on, and there's some nice movement. It'll probably go 16 by 9. Possibly even a 2-to-1 crop, I don't know. There's no foreground interest in this composition because there's no way to get it here. The only foreground interest really is kind of the light in the water, but for me that works. Better to have no significant foreground interest than the wrong foreground interest, in my opinion. And what I'm thinking I might do, this was at f11, I think I might go to f16 and try a 4-minute exposure and see what that looks like. Come down off of the dam down onto one side, because from the dam I thought I could see, but I had to come down here to check that the water levels dropped enough that there's like a little rocky island thing sticking up. It's only small, but it might just add something interesting in the frame with kind of the mountains behind, again with a long exposure. So we're going to do 2 minutes again with a 10 stop and a 3 stop, because it is still quite bright. So there's this little, almost like a little rocky islandy thing sticking out of the water here, then the mountains behind, and then obviously the clouds. Yeah, so we're getting a balanced exposure, no need for grads, which is just as well because I haven't got any. I'd have to do multiple exposure, and probably with something like a 16 by 9 crop to take out some of the foreground but leave that little island in the middle. Now I've shot this quite low down, which leaves a little bit of a gap between the little island and the shoreline in the background, and I think that might work. But I'm going to do a shot where I'm just going to bring the tripod up a little bit, which will increase that, if you like, that negative space between the little island and the shoreline in the background. just to see if that works a little bit better. It might just be a little bit tight the way it is. And again, I'll show you whichever image I think works the best. I think the higher vantage point works better. Probably should have said earlier, almost all of these are going to be black and white, I think, because the colours aren't great. If we get some nice colours later on, that'll be different. But at the moment, I'm thinking black and white for these. A bit more of a wander round down by that end of the reservoir, but I couldn't really find anything that was grabbing me. There was one shot that I thought might work, but I wasn't convinced, and I decided to take a bit of a gamble. I jumped in the car and drove up to the far end of the reservoir. I say it's a bit of a gamble because I didn't really know what it's like up here at the moment, because I haven't been up here for a long time, but I thought I'd come up here and just see if there's anything that grabs me. I've got no idea what's going to happen around sunset, which is in about an hour. But as I said before, the light will go off the scene long before then. I know there's always problems at this end because there's a lot of power lines running across the scene, which can often make it difficult to get a composition that works. Okay, I found a scene here which actually looks really quite pretty actually. It's going to be a wide angle shot and I'm not going for long exposure on this. The sun is dipping down over one side, so that's going to be really tricky to manage that. So I'm going to be doing multiple exposures to manage this. And there are some pylons and cables in the scene. I don't mind the pylons to one side. The cables over the top I'm not so sure about, and I'll have to decide what I'm going to do about them. I can clone them out fairly easy, and yeah, okay, I know some people will say, well, that's cheating and you shouldn't do it, but on the other hand, I'm not trying to sell this as a accurate representation necessarily of the scene. I'm trying to create an idealistic view of what the scene looks like. And when I can do that through composition, I will. When I can't do it through composition, I will, have to resort maybe to a little bit of, taking things out in Photoshop. If it makes for a nice image, I don't mind. I might actually do several goes at this as the light changes and as the sun drops down. There's some really nice colours in the water, sort of beautiful sort of greeny tones in the water. And I think it might look quite nice. Okay, so what we've got is these kind of rocky bits here coming in on the left hand side of the frame, and then over there these bits coming in on the right. The channel of water kind of winds its way through. We've got the hills and that in the background. You can just about see the dam and that over in the background there. Now there are some power lines going across the scene, and there's some pylons over that side, which I'm going to have to make some decisions about, whether I take out the pylons and the lines, whether I leave the pylons and the lines in that are over the land and just take out the ones that are crossing the scene. I haven't decided yet. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one at 1/50th of a second, keep it nice and bright. And that's blowing out most of the sky. So I'm going to go 2 stops. Other way, idiot. 2 stops darker. Now it's still going to blow out a big chunk of the sky. It's pulling a lot more detail back. And then we'll go 2 stops darker again. 1/800th of a second. I'm only blowing out a small part of the sky now, and that might be recoverable, but I'm going to do another one 2 stops darker again. So 1/3200th of a second, just in case I need to pull back that last little bit of highlight detail. I don't mind a little bit of blown highlights in the sky if it works for the image, if it looks right for the image, as long as they're not too blown out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until the sun just dips behind the hills over there and do another set of shots, and then as soon as that sun's dipped below, we're going to lose all of the light and the colour on this scene. Having complained about the pylons and power lines earlier, I've decided to make a feature of them on this one. I did it in another recent video as well, but there's 2 pylons out there. I have no idea if you can see behind me, and I'm going to do a vertical image but with a square crop, because we've got the pylons. It's quite nice, sort of textured cloud and quite nice reflections as well. Kind of breaking the cardinal rule, which is don't leave straight after sunset. Just after I took that last image, suddenly there were mosquitoes everywhere, and I haven't got any mosquito spray with me, and I really don't fancy ending up covered in bites, especially when I'm not entirely convinced the scene is going to be that great, even if the sky does light up. So I've beaten a hasty retreat. I think I've got away from where the mosquitoes were, although I've got to go back past the water again, so I'm hoping I don't get suddenly hit by a load of them on the way back to the car. It's been a pleasant afternoon, early evening out with some hopefully interesting shots, probably some of them black and white, almost certainly some of them colour, and you'll already have seen them. Now, just quickly to say that my next video is due out on the 24th, which is Christmas Eve. I did think about not putting a video out, but I've decided I'm going to, but I'm going to put it out a bit earlier in the day, so it'll probably come out around about midday-ish Spanish time, so late morning in the UK, and I guess you're going to have to do whatever conversions you need to for any other places that you're watching. And then the one after that will be New Year's Eve, which again I will put out a bit earlier in the day. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, like, shares and comments, all really appreciated. If you've enjoyed this video and you're new here and you want to see more of my stuff, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.